got that on video too. You see this? Yeah.
Oh!
Dude, look over here. This stuff is too big to even come out.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Jack and Matt here with the Toaster Bros, and today we're going to be doing a $300 used gaming PC build.
Let's get right into it, shall we? But first, a word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by, wait for it, GVGMall, an online marketplace to gain access to some awesome discount game keys and more specifically, Windows 10 licenses.
If you guys use the link in the description down below, type in code TB20, you will get 20% off your Windows 10 Pro key. Just type it into the Windows 10 activation and then boom, you have Windows 10 Pro activated.
We use their keys all the time here, and we're going to be using it for this system right here, which we'll talk about in just a minute. It's a super easy process. Use the link in the description down below. And thanks again to GVGMall for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so we have an interesting story behind this computer right here. You might be wondering, why in the world do we have a IBuyPower PC and we're going to be doing a budget PC build around it? Well, I'll let Jackson tell you exactly how this thing came into our possession.
So how Matt and I actually got this very dusty PC, and this is actually after we cleaned it, by the way, is we did a partial trade with a guy who happened to have this system, and if you guys click the eye in the top right corner, we had a 12-core, 24-thread Xeon workstation that we needed to get rid of, and this guy was like, hey, I will give you guys $200 plus this PC for that build. We valued that build at about $370, as you can see if you guys check out the video. So all in all, we paid about $170 for this PC, and all we really knew about it going into it was that it had an 8350 in it, and that was really it. The guy didn't really know much more, didn't know much about computers. He just wanted something with more cores to be able to do a lot of rendering with. Matt and I kind of wanted an FX system anyways, and we know these things do kind of hold their value, especially if we can get them this cheap.
And when we got the system, we were surprised by two things. One, this thing was incredibly dusty. It actually was a lot worse than this, as Jackson mentioned. And two, it actually came with a liquid cooler. This is an H60 from Corsair. It's a 120mm liquid cooler. Probably a little bit old, but I'd be willing to bet still works perfectly fine. Corsair products do tend to last a while. But on the inside, it also came with a 750 as the graphics card. But as you see right here, we have an RX 580 that we're going to be upgrading this thing with to kind of see exactly how FX performs in 2019. But yeah, if you really wanted to in a situation like this, we could go out of our way to sell the 750 and make this a little bit of a cheaper system. But since we're here trying to just do a PC build, we're probably just going to keep the 750 if it works as a test card, and then use this RX 580 to show the true potential of the FX 8350.
So real quick, going over the specs of this system currently, we have an 8350 that is cooled by this nice Corsair all-in-one liquid cooler, and we have 8 gigs from XPG, 2 4-gig sticks at 1866 megahertz, which is a really nice speed for DDR3. And for the motherboard, we have an old-fashioned Gigabyte 970A.
Now the power supply is a little bit of a throwback. This is an OCZ 700-watt power supply that is semi-modular, so it's a little bit of an older unit, but should be perfectly fine to power this system. And then the case we have right here, we actually need some help from the viewers out there. This is a Thermaltake case because the IBuyPower logo is actually just covering a Thermaltake logo. If you peel that off, you'll be able to see that. We're not totally sure what Thermaltake case this is, so please let us know in the comment section down below if you know what it is. But overall, what we're going to do is try to make this thing as pretty as possible, maybe give it a little bit more of a touch-up. A little bit of dust is an understatement. There's actually dust sitting here on our table. So what we're going to do is give this thing a little bit more of a cleaning and then do some gaming benchmarks with the RX 580 and see, is FX still capable in 2019? We'll see. chugs like a machine. It's pure machine.
Pure adrenaline.
All right.
So overall, we're pretty impressed because for this thing coming in at a little over $300, it did really good for the, well, that type of budget.
So you can get a lot of FX processors in systems like this on like eBay or maybe your local listings on Craigslist. And if you can get it at this price point, it wouldn't make for a pretty decent budget system for, let's say, somebody who wants, well, a budget PC. There were some games that are very CPU dependent, like CSGO, where you could see some of the bottlenecking occurring. But in other games where the GPU could stretch its legs, and things like PUBG and Far Cry, you do get more favorable numbers, and I actually managed to kill some people in PUBG. So that tells you something. I can't do that on some of the higher end systems.
Because of the CPU.
It's because of the FX processor. You get kills in PUBG with the FX processor. But anyways, this system overall performed pretty well. The IBuyPower case is pretty decent. Once we got it all cleaned up, it was a mess when we got this. Cleaning up the radiator with the compressed air, wiping down a bunch of the crevices with dust and such. Overall, everything is working properly.
So this thing did have to have a couple of adapters put onto it because this is an older OCZ 700 watt power supply. It's actually a really good modular power supply, but it did not come with all the extra cables plugged in, and we didn't have any that we could actually plug in. So we only had a really short CPU 8-pin, and we did not have any extra GPU power cables. So we had to just adapt the GPU ones for Molex, then we had to buy an extension for the CPU one. But overall, though, really not an expensive thing to do.
And the SSD we went with for this, again, is kind of overkill. It's an RGB SSD, but to add a little bit of good looks to the system, we decided to throw the RGB SSD in. Again, if we wanted to sell this thing, we probably put like an RGB strip at some point in the future to up its value in 2019. But overall, this thing turned out pretty good. After giving it a little bit of love and seeing what kind of performance it has, we're actually pretty impressed with this little FX 8350 PC in 2019 gaming.
So as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we will see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Goodbye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Should we start using back?